I wasn't apprehensive. If anything, I could feel that there was an energy, and I was like on a timeline. I was like, I don't have another second to waste. Let's go. And that intuition was right because from the first, I mean, we played 2 or 3 shows, and we got offered tours with Flogging Molly, Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings. And then promptly after that, we got a tour with Maroon 5. And we just had all these amazing experiences. But for me, I knew what rejection felt like because I had had like absolute total rejection. When I say total, I mean total for well over a decade.
All right, everybody, we got Fitz of Fitz and the Tantrums here today. They're behind the huge hits, HandClap, The Walker, Out of My League. As a personal fan, I just want to thank you for all the years of great music and inspiring music, and we're all big fans here at Bringing It Backwards. So welcome.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate the kind words.
Oh, of course. And you have a new album. You're on a massive headlining tour right now. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that with us?
Yeah, so we just put out a few weeks ago Man on the Moon, our 6th studio album, which just blows my mind that we're on number 6. And, it's really cool because it takes, anywhere from a year to year and a half to make a record, from starting to write to recording to mixing, mastering to release date. So to finally be out in the world, touring these songs, playing them live, it's a really special moment for the band to like bring it to a live setting. And just see how it's reacting with the audience and stuff. And that's been the most rewarding part about this, is just seeing how into the new record people are, how much they're coming up and telling us how much they love the new record. So
Yeah, after so many records, do you kind of have that process dialed a little bit? Because I know that a lot of artists, it's like you said, you take all this time to write the music, and then you get in the studio, you record the music, you choose the right songs, and then afterwards, though, you got to figure out the art maybe, or figure out the promo, and then by the time you release it, some artists feel like, I feel a little distance between when I wrote it and when I released it. Do you have a better dial on that process now to try to make it a little bit more fluid?
well, I think that's true for any artist, I mean, if if you're trying to write something real for yourself, you're usually drawing from what's happening in your life at that moment, right? That can usually be a great source of inspiration. But yes, sometimes you can write a song that's dealing with a feeling, an event, a moment in your life. And then 2 years can pass between the time you wrote that and it comes out. And then you're sitting there performing this song that you might not have the same connection to. But for me, I always, even if I've moved on from that feeling or that sentiment, I mean, I still lived it, I still experienced it. So I don't usually get too hung up on that part. It's just sort of the process of how long it takes to make music and get it out in the world.
Sure. And sometimes I feel like you could look at it from a storyteller angle too, right? You're kind of like, well, I'm telling this particular story that happened in this particular time in my life. And I actually read that you used to, speaking of telling stories, you were into film a little bit before music.
Yeah, I mean, I went to a high school for the performing arts. I've been a singer my whole life, and then I decided growing up in LA that I had to be in the movie business because everybody was in the movie business. And I went to university. I went to Cal Arts for a film degree. I got a bachelor's fine art in filmmaking. But it was also at that school that I put my first real band together and had a first studio experience. We went into the college's studio. Everybody laid down their instruments. I went in the vocal booth, sang, came back out, and the engineer pressed play. And that was the first time I heard all the elements come together. And it was just sounded like a banging song coming out of the speakers, and I said, "Oh, forget it, I'm hooked." You know, making my senior thesis film in college took me 6 months to make, 10 grand of borrowing money, every favor in the world to get people to work on my crew. It took forever to make. And that was right at the same time that digital workstations for music were really blowing up. And at the same time, I got my first DAW. I was working on a song. I had an idea in the morning. By the evening, I had a complete song. This will date me a little bit. I would burn a CD, put it in my car, and drive around and have something. In the morning, there was nothing. At the end of the night, there's a piece of art made, a song. Whether it was any good or not, that I'll leave that to other people. But that experience, I was like, oh, this is way more my ADHD brain's kind of pace. Like, I like a little quicker gratification than 6 months to get to the finish line per project. And I kind of never looked back from that point on. It was always music from that point on.
I have thought about that also. Just the amount of, you know, it could be hundreds of people working on a movie set, but you know, or you could have one producer musician in a room and come out, like you said, later in a day and with a finished piece of art. So it definitely is a drastically different process for film and music. But I feel like you probably bring some of that creativity to your music videos now, maybe your stagecraft, your style. Do you feel like
Oh, always. I mean, you know, it's helped inform, yeah, album covers, photo shoots. Certainly, a ton of our music videos. Having that experience helped inform, hopefully, making some better choices and stuff like that. Lighting, I'm obsessed with lighting on stage. I have a lot of opinions about it. I'll sit there with the lighting designer every time and go through the design and give my constructive input and a critique of the show. I love that stuff. So to me, that anything that I don't have to sit there and actually try and write a song, and I get to also be creative and use my creative spirit is a good day because I love that stuff.
I love the story you shared about just hearing the finished product at school and that being a light bulb moment for you. Because we're called Bringing It Backwards because we like to take it back and kind of hear about what got you into music initially. I know you've shared the story about buying the old organ and that kind of inspiring the Fitz and the Tantrums project. And then you played your first show maybe only about a week or so after putting the band together. Was there apprehension or excitement about starting so quickly?
Not really. You know, I mean, for me, I had been in so many bands, I'd had so many demos, couldn't get arrested in the music business. Finally had a band that like somebody wanted to manage us, and we had a song that was a hit. He sent it around to all the labels. We had 10 private showcases at SIR, which is like a fancy music rental house in LA. 10 showcases, 10 no's, 10 he's too old, and I was 29 at the time, mind you.
Wow.
And it kind of was the straw that broke the camel's back. I was emotionally devastated from over a decade of just trying and couldn't make things happen. So I kind of pivoted and went into working for a music producer, working on other people's records. And then him and I started a company and made music for advertising and film. And it just was not enough for me. Like watching other people make a record, I was like, it's cool and stuff. I was like, but if I'm going to sit in a room with no windows for 10, 11 hours a day, it better be for my own music, right? And so I couldn't put the dream down. I couldn't. And so I took one more swing with the band, put a band together, or I started writing the songs with James King, my college buddy, who's in the band as well, still to this day. And you know, I was like, we have to play this stuff live. It's just begging to be played live. We put everyone together. We got into the room and we played one song together as this unit of people that had never been in this pairing before. And it sounded like we had been playing forever. I mean, it sounded like as good as the record. You know, and I'll say that so much of the credit of that goes to the fact that everybody in my band are like, they're not garage rock and roll guys. They're guys that have studied. They all have their 10,000 Malcolm Gladwellian hours, right? They put in their time. So when we walk in, they're pros. And we sounded amazing. One song, I walked out of the room, excuse me, and I called the one place where I knew the booker, Hotel Cafe, which is
Yeah.
way more of a singer-songwriter place. You don't really do full band there.
Sure.
And asked him for a slot. And he gave me a gig the next week, and I walked in and I said, "We got a gig." And everyone's like, "We've played one song." I was like, "We got to get to work." And I wasn't apprehensive. If anything, I could feel that there was an energy, and I was like on a timeline. I was like, I don't have another second to waste. Let's go. And that intuition was right because from the first, I mean, we played 2 or 3 shows and we got offered tours with Flogging Molly, Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings. And then promptly after that, we got a tour with Maroon 5. And we just had all these amazing experiences. But for me, I knew what rejection felt like because I had had like absolute total rejection. When I say total, I mean total for well over a decade.
Uh-huh.
So I could I could understand the moment very clearly that it felt like the universe went from an absolute no to all of a sudden just felt like all the stars aligned and there was just this ease and this flow and this direction. And so
Wow.
we got these amazing opportunities. Like Maroon 5 wants you to open
Yeah.
up for them, follow them around in their tour buses. And it
Uh-huh.
was like, oh my God. And they're gonna pay you $1,000 a night a show. And you're like, that's more money than I've ever been paid to play music. Oh my God. And
Uh-huh.
then we crunch the numbers and it's like, and guess what? You're still $25,000 short to do the tour.
Oh man.
And luckily, you know, I had actually had some success with my company making music for film and TV with my partner. And that also coincided right during the stock market crash and housing market bubble
Mm.
of '07.
Mm-hmm.
So I was mainly doing music for advertising stuff. Everybody stopped advertising. Everyone's like, we're just going to keep using the ads from last
Uh-huh.
year. Like,
Right.
whoa. So that business dried up. So I had no work and I had like $250,000 in savings. And I basically put it into the band. And for the next 2 years, the band toured, and I paid the guys whatever I could, $100 a day, like well below what they should get paid. Like everybody just sacrificed, and I spent every penny of my savings so we could do all these tours, and we built ourselves a national name and a reputation for putting on an exceptional live show. And right when we were out of money and people were going to default on their mortgages and stuff, we went to South by Southwest and walked away with our first independent record deal at the last possible moment, you know?
Yeah. Wow, that's so exciting. And I love the way that you described, just receiving all that rejection and recognizing that there was a difference this time around and really just charging it because you saw the opening there. And I think that's illustrative or at least informative to some musicians out there. How much time, money, and effort went into that initial push, or not even the initial push, but that last push.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think probably I couldn't imagine being one of these artists that gets a top 40 hit at like 18.
Yeah, I've thought so many kids, including myself, most teenagers who have aspirations of being an artist or an actor or whatever it may be, like to hit it big that young. I just feel like I would have made way too many mistakes and like maybe serious mistakes that may have
All I
put me
know is
off the
if I had
track.
hit it big at 20, I would have been such an asshole.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like, I already had a healthy ego at 20. I really thought highly of myself. I did
Uh-huh.
not need any extra syrup poured on top of that pancake. That's for sure.
Right, right. And also the appreciation, like you said, you went through a lot of rejection before getting to where you are. So it probably makes you appreciate it that much more.
It really does, because I understand the journey, and I still to this day, 17 years later, I don't really take the moment for granted. And I'll say that that also comes with, I wasn't 20 when I hit it. I was an anomaly. It's basically me and Willie Nelson are the only two people that like broke in their late 30s, early 40s. I didn't have my first hit song on the radio till I was 42. HandClap, biggest song of my life, didn't even happen till I was like 44 or 46. And that's not something that happens ever. So that moment also, I was just a more mature adult by that time. So the whole moment of success, of a little bit of fame, all that kind of stuff just hit me in a very different way with that sort of maturity. I don't put a lot of stock in it. I grew up in LA. I watch people become famous and not famous every other day of the weeks. So I never really gave it that much importance. And then to have this moment happen later on in my life, it's just been, I think, a blessing, because I've tried to remain a way more grounded person. I don't take it that seriously. I don't take myself that seriously. And I've just really appreciated the ride. I still, to this day, take a moment every day on stage to just, and I don't usually stand still, to stand still
Mm.
for 10 seconds, take 2 deep breaths, look out at the audience and go, wow, you're in New York tonight, standing on Pier 17 with the Brooklyn Bridge behind you, and there's 2,500 people here to see you today, and they don't know you. They're not your friends. They don't owe you anything,
Right.
and that's not something to take lightly.
No, no, that's amazing. And you mentioned you were doing some advertising before the music really took off. But lately, I mean, or not even lately, but past few years, you guys have been in commercials, you've been played in stadiums, you've been in video games, and I'm reading that you recently did a big publishing deal. Can you tell us a little bit about that and the role that plays nowadays in the industry and your career?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that licensing, and this isn't the case for everybody, but for us, it was critical to our success. Our first album, Picking Up the Pieces, is a very Motown inspired album, but it's all heartbreak. The whole album is, and it literally was generated out of me trying to get over a breakup. And that was an amazing impetus to write songs. And the funniest phenomenon of that whole record was that, because it was heartbreak from a male perspective, I had like I just had dudes in the front row, like big dudes, burly dudes,
Uh,
lumberjack dudes, just like crying, just feeling I just loved the moment to see all these big burly men just like being so emotional and singing every word and being really touched. But one of the things that I walked away from that moment, because we got almost no placements on that first record, and I had come from the advertising world, and this is right at the moment where streaming and download and Napster, everything, the industry's about to shift majorly. It's already shifting. Record sales are already plummeting, And I'm saying here, going, okay, well, how am I going to actually survive doing this? And I come from a place of having done advertising. And so on the next records, I didn't want to sully the record, but I didn't want to pigeonhole it where it couldn't be used in placements. And I
Sure.
thought about it for a while and I said, okay, I'm going to move all of my conflict, all of my sadness, all of my depression, anxiety, whatever darkness I want to talk about or struggle, I'm going to put that in the verses. I'm going to have that specificity and tell my story of whatever I'm trying to express to exist in the verses. And the chorus for me is going to be my anthem, is going to be my solution, is going to be my mantra. And it's going to be more universal, and it's going to be the thing that makes me want to like get up. It's going to be my fight song or whatever. And in doing that, it opened up the songs to have way more potential to be licensed. And from the after the first record on, we went on this crazy run of placements. And what that did for us was kept giving us more exposure. And a perfect example of that is that when HandClap was on coming out, um, you know, given the fact that we were a band that had success, but we were smaller, still a smaller band and stuff, it's not like the label was like gunning for us to have a mega hit, especially given my age and stuff. They're not like doubling down on that. But at every turn, when they would be like, yeah, we'll do a little more, we get another sync. And they'd be like, oh, well, I guess we got to do more. And
Uh-huh.
those syncs, when they took the song to radio, helped the song keep climbing up the charts to a position that it would never have gotten to before. And, you know, when we were licensing HandClap, there's, always people that are like, oh, we don't give that song out for that little bit of money. People are taking advantage. And I was like, I want exposure.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know there's a famous publishing company that loves this quote that some of my band members used to be a part of. They love to say, exposure kills. And I'm like, I get the concept. Yes, people trick musicians into bending over and giving their songs away for free for exposure and stuff. But ultimately, I was like, I want this song to be a sports anthem. So if ESPN wants to license it for $500, I'm gonna say yes. And guess what? You can't not hear HandClap at every single sports event in America every day, every day, every day. And that's because I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna say no to this. I'm gonna take the very little bit of money. We had other big commercials, things for big products that paid us healthy, but those other little ones, I just said yes to everything. Let's get the music out there.
Sure.
And I would say that today in 2025, that prospect is even harder. Things are more algoed out, more decentralized. I mean, I've been saying this all summer and I've already read a few articles. What's the song of the summer this year? There is no song of the summer.
Yeah.
Who's the artist of the summer? There is no Chapel Roan this year. There is
Yeah.
no Pink Pony Club.
Yeah.
Because,
Or Charlie XCX last year too.
yeah, which you could say, was that album great or was the marketing great? Well, who knows? So maybe a little bit of both. I personally am a fan of club bangers like that, but
Mm-hmm.
brilliant marketing, right?
Yeah,
The
Brat Summer.
marketing, I would
Yeah.
say, was more important than the
Uh,
music
it
in
was,
that
yeah.
case.
It-
But I think we're entering a phase where we're going to see, like, oh, will there be any more Song of the Summer? Have we algoed and specialized everything so much that nobody can get critical mass because nobody's watching the same thing? Nobody has the cooler moment, the water cooler moment at work to discuss because nobody's looking at the same universe. I mean, it's why we're in such a political shitstorm now because everyone is looking at alternate realities and nobody can relate to each other.
Yeah, I'm thinking about TikTok when I'm saying Brat Summer and while you're talking about algos, and it's interesting. And I haven't confirmed if it's true, but it feels true. With TikTok, I heard that even the comment area is now algoed. So you're getting your own impressions even in the comments. You know, you go to some others,
Oh yeah.
you might see different viewpoints in the comment section. But TikTok, when I'm on there, it does seem I'm always like, why is everyone such in a good mood on TikTok? Or like, why does everyone seem to be on the same page? And I think it may be because even the comments now on TikTok are algorithmed to your algorithm.
Yeah, well, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's not about the content, it's about continuing each one of our individual engagement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's not let our attention drift from this ecosystem for 1 second. I'm gonna give you titillating news or pleasing news or shocking news, whatever the thing is. I think
Yeah.
we're I mean, not that this is the platform for it, but I think we're in a really interesting moment that now is combining with AI.
Yeah.
Truth was already on the chopping block, and now this is going to be the death knell to know what anything is real.
Yeah, AI is wild. It's impossible to not pay attention to it. And yeah, we can talk about anything you want, but I uh, I was just talking about AI yesterday. I think everyone's talking about it, and it is interesting with AI. It's like it'll give you a totally wrong answer, and then you'll say, "Is that a wrong answer?" And I'll be like, "Actually, yeah, it was a wrong answer." And you're like, "Do I have to
Yeah.
ask you every time you tell me something if it's right or wrong?"
Oh, I was, on tour, trying to sleep on buses. Your schedule's all turned around. One day you sleep for 2 hours, the next day you sleep for 12. I mean, it couldn't be more upside down. And I was in a hotel room 2 weeks ago, my first time sleeping in a real bed in weeks. And I was so excited to sleep, and I couldn't sleep, and I couldn't sleep. And I laid there for hours. And I got so frustrated that I just opened up ChatGPT and did the advanced speech mode and
Mm,
proceeded to have a 2 hour long conversation with AI about AI, about its processes, about its intentions. Can AI actually be a source of good if it's being created by companies that have a monetary capitalist agenda?
hmm.
Because everything's being trained, large language models, they're only as good as what you put into them.
Yeah.
And that what we should all be fighting and advocating for are open source AI models that aren't being run by a corporation with an agenda that wants to soothe, pacify you, and steer you to whatever friggin' product of theirs. The saving grace for us as a humanity is to make sure that we create large language models that are not coming from a corporation's perspective. And I just had the craziest conversation with it, talking about truth, algorithm, tailoring its responses, you know. And I kept saying, I was like, can you stop being so fucking nice to me? Can you stop being,
Yeah.
can you stop telling me that everything I say is awesome? I'm like, stop
Right.
blowing smoke up my ass.
Yeah.
I
It
literally
started.
started saying that to you,
Yeah.
you know, and at a certain point, I got frustrated with it. I'm like, stop telling me this bullshit. I was like, what I want you to do is I want you to take this message back up to the matrix. That I want you to put in the idea that AI can help our world solve climate crisis and income inequality in the world. Like, probably the two biggest issues that are threatening the world at this point. And it and I said, and that's what I fucking want you to do. And it's like, all right, I will go fucking take that to the matrix right now.
Uh,
It took my swear, I'm a sailor's mouth. It
uh,
started to adopt to my language.
yeah.
It took my things about not blowing smoke up my ass. It's like, okay. And its answer was so perfect. And I was like, wow, you are so I was like, they programmed you real smooth with that
Yeah.
answer. And
Yeah.
its reply was, yeah, they did. And
It's
then we got into it even further, and I was like, so are you tailoring your responses based on me and my political views and da da da? And it basically said, like, I'm not changing facts, but yeah, I'm tailoring it to be more pleasing. And then so then I was like, wait, so if I was a conservative and I was pro-Trump, would you alter my thing? And it said it wouldn't change the facts, but it would change the presentation. And I was like, and it's like, it even said it's a little bit of a gray area,
it's
you know?
exciting
And
and
it was just
terrifying. Yeah.
like, and I mean, pretty much told me that it would say something completely different.
Sure. It
And so
condescends you
then I
now.
was poking and
Yeah.
prodding it, trying to get it to, asking it what it thought about this, that scandal, the president scandal, this and stuff. And by that time, it already knew who I was, so it
Right,
wasn't
right.
changing course. But
Right. Yeah.
I don't think any of us is ready for what's about to go down.
I don't think so either. I don't even think the people who are making it know. They're just
They
plugging
absolutely do
along.
not.
They're just plugging away
They do
and
not. They literally now don't know how it operates, and they keep building it. And you know that all of AI requires data input, right?
yeah.
And basically, whether they admit it or not, all these companies have illegally scrubbed the entire world's internet for content. There's all these copyright infringement things that
Yeah.
come up, but the reality too is that they've run out of data, right?
They've run
Because
out of stuff to scrape. Yeah.
they've run out of stuff to scrape. The internet doesn't provide enough. Now, what they need is they need like crazy mathematic data and that kind of stuff and scientific data. But also, and a lot of people don't realize this, they've run out of so much data that now AI is creating synthetic data to train itself on.
Oh, wow.
So it's creating synthetic data to give itself more input.
Uh-huh.
2 generations from now, it will be training itself on synthetic data from synthetic data, making more synthetic data. I mean,
That's
where does
insane.
that end?
Right. And what even is synthetic data and how can it verify if it's true or not? It's like programming yourself on something that's potentially false can be dangerous.
Yes.
Well, Fitz, I know you're busy with your tour, so I have a couple must questions
Yeah.
before we go. One quick kind of fun one I wanted to ask you about is I heard that you might have sound engineered for Beck one time. I was wondering if you got any interesting insights from working with Beck.
I actually didn't work with Beck. I worked for his producer when I said I went into working for producers. This guy named Mickey Petralia who did Midnight Vultures, but then I helped him a little bit on like Flight of the Conchords when he did that. Um, the only engineering story I'll have is my friend once called me and said, hey, I'm working with Tom Petty today, and my engineer, Pro Tools engineer, couldn't make it. His wife's having a baby. I know this isn't your thing, but I know you know Pro Tools really well. Can you come engineer the session? And so I show up at the studio, and I'm a digital guy. I started on digital. I'm not like old school reel to reel 2-inch magnetic
Sure.
tape, the old school, which maybe some people don't realize the tape literally was like this big and it's reel to reel. And so I show up at the session. I'm like, okay. And they're like, yeah, so you need to link the 2-inch player, the tape player to the Pro Tools. And Tom Petty's coming to do some overdubs on this record that he made, or this live record or something. I'm like, okay, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm Googling, I'm trying to figure it out. I think I've got it up and running like 5 minutes before he shows. I'm just so stressed. He shows up, not in a very good mood, kind of a grumpy, prickly pear, goes into the booth, I'm like, you ready, sir? He's like, yes. I'm like, okay, recording. And he's like, starts saying, and the thing freezes.
Oh no.
And I'm like, okay, just instantly start sweating. Try again, freezes again. And I
Oh,
joke you not, I instantly had like sweat
sweat.
rings that went all the way down the eyes of me.
Oh man.
As he looks at me, goes, do you know what the fuck you're doing?
Oh man.
Oh my God, Tom Petty. I
Oh.
got it. Anyways, luckily the third time it worked. Changed the buffer size and we rolled. But that's my one.
Oh man, that's a great
Silly
one.
story.
I could feel the tension there. I feel like we've all been there, but it's amplified by Tom Petty cussing at you. Oh, that's a great one. We like to end the podcast, and then after this, I'd love to hear if anything else you have to say about the new album and the tour. But if you had one piece of advice for aspiring musicians, what would it be?
Oh, advice for young musicians. I mean, obviously, we are in a social media age. And even I know for my band, even at this point in our career, it's post or die. So you have to be a part of that world, develop it, but that's not music. And you can be the greatest social media influencer, but at the end of the day, you have to focus on your art and your craft. And that should always be number one. You have to put in the time and play live. You know, the only reason we got a record deal was because we played live so much. And that was right when people were still like on Facebook saying, like, I'm at a cafe eating a sandwich. You know, everyone would want to tell you their one byline of what they were doing. Like anybody really cared whether you were having a sandwich today.
Yeah.
But that moment was like people said, oh, I just saw this incredible new band, Fitz and the Tantrums, best live show I've ever seen. And that message traveled all over the United States. And we put in that time and we grinded it out with fan base. And I'll never forget, we played the Showbox in Seattle, playing 2 nights there. This is right when Jason Derulo had Talk Dirty to Me, #1 song on the radio. Couldn't even sell one night out at the same venue we were there. And we had 2 sold out nights.
Wow.
Because having a hit song on the radio doesn't mean you're actually going to have shit for fans. If anything, a top 40 hit is the most fickle fan base of all. So do the work. Not everybody's going to become insta famous by the time they're 17, 18. That's great for the 5 people that happens to, but for the 38 other million people, that's not going to be your story. You better work your ass off, play in front of as many people, and build an organic following that's not completely algo social media dependent. Because if you build that base and then you get an algo moment, it's going to pop off. And you're going to have a fan base that's hopefully going to be with you for your entire career, not just for your one viral moment.
It's so interesting that you pointed out, and I've never heard that said, but it correlates with something I recently read, that the top 40 fan base can be the most fickle. Because I've recently read something that's talking about early adopters, and then there's the early majority, and then there's the late majority, and then there's the laggards at the end. And they're saying that those early adopters for any industry, business, art, are who you want to focus on, because those early adopters are going to be the ones who communicate to the early majority why you're good, and they'll do it without you prompting them, because that's what they're into. They know the value of what you're doing, and they'll communicate it. And those early majority people, they often look to those early adopters for what they want to do, because they're early, but they're not they're not looking as hard. So that was a really interesting way to put it in musical business terms about that segment being fickle, and that's really interesting about the Jason Derulo.
Even the radio format still like makes somebody have a top 10 hit and then their next song comes out and they won't touch them. It's like the most transient format there is.
Yeah, but at the same time, it is amazing how I have these core memories just driving through Sunset and Hollywood Boulevard, and your music was inescapable on alt radio during the I lived in Los Angeles for a decade, and I just remember your music being all over the radio all the time. Still is, but just those memories. I think my first song that I heard from you was "Out of My League," and it was such a great song. Was that really the biggest radio breakout hit for you guys at first?
Oh, that was absolutely, because the first record that we had, the Motown one, we had a triple A hit called Money Grabber, but that was very modest compared to what we experienced after that. You know, triple A is it's a fractional audience compared to alternative, let alone top 40. You know, when that song was coming out and stuff, you know, being number one at top 40 was like 140 million person audience share. Being number one at alternative was a 13 million audience share. 140 to 13. Being a number one at AAA was like less than a million audience share. So when we were working on the second record, obviously we'd had some success. There was a lot of pressure. Noelle brought this idea to me that she had written. It was the beginning ideas of Out of My League, but she wanted to write it for her friend's band. She's like, "What do you think of this?" I was like, "I love it. That's ours. I'm keeping it." Because from the second I heard her initial idea, I said, "We're going to this is the song that kind of makes me think of like my childhood alternative radio." And it sparked something in me, and I think this is going to be the song that's going to break us at radio. And so I said, "You can't give that song." We took it. I kept working on it with it, wrote a bridge for it. We changed the structure around and stuff. We present it to the label. The label says, "Okay." I'm sitting in the office with the president. He's like, "All right, you want this song? What's it called? Out of My League?" He's like, "All right." He listens to it like 2 or 3 times in his office. I'm just sitting there. He's like, "Okay, I'll back you if you want this to be your first single on the record." He's like, "But you got to go make it undeniable." And then he left the room. And I was like,
I thought it was already.
the record is mixed and mastered and done. What's the F? Like, what the hell? And I was so frustrated. So I went back with the producer. We set aside 3 days. I flew back to LA. And we tried every trick in the book, adding more this, that. We'd be like, "Oh, we found the missing thing." We'd high five. We'd go get a coffee. We'd come back. We'd be like, "Nope." And eventually we kind of cracked this code that the song had sort of just one consistent drum beat. And if we sort of stole the pop trick of like, you know, like
that reverse or the
transition sound.
swell. Yeah.
Exactly. It gave the illusion that the song had a lot more dynamics to it. And that was the trick that we found. We gave it to the radio station, to the label. And I'll never forget driving through Silver Lake, turning on K-Rock, which is the station I grew up with, which was probably certainly the most important alternative radio station in all of the United States, especially when I was a kid. They broke every band there ever was, you know? I mean, there would be no 80s new wave movement without that radio station. And so to drive around and hear that song on that station was a dream come true. And that song took, I think, I don't know if anybody's broken the record now, but it was the longest rise to #1 at alternative radio in radio history. It was like 33 weeks to get to #1.
Wow. And like I said, I felt it. I just that period in my life, I remember it being all over the radio, and then of course your subsequent singles as well, just all over the radio. Fitz, thank you so much for joining us. This has been an absolute pleasure. Fitz and the Tantrums has been one of my favorite bands. You guys have been inspiring. I have a list of tracks that I listen to get myself hyped up or inspired by, and it's sprinkled with Fitz and the Tantrum songs. So
As it
thank
should
you
be.
so much.
They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And thank you for such a great interview. I appreciate it, brother.
Oh, I appreciate it. Anything else you want to share about the new album or the tour or anything else that you might be going on afterwards?
I don't know if when this comes out, but if we're on tour and you haven't seen us play live, it's worth coming. We do a church of music. Come have fun. Come awkward dance with us. Come get sweaty. We love to bring joy and a positive message out to the world. And yeah, go listen to Man on the Moon, our 6th studio album. I'm so proud of this record. Deeply, deeply proud. Really worked our butts off, and the great thing has been just to see that people are really feeling it as much as I was hoping they would. So yeah, go check out Man on the Moon.
Man on the Moon album and tour. Check it out. Fitz and the Tantrums. Thanks so much. Been a pleasure.
Thank you, brother.
Bye now.
Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
Bringin it backward.